Ready.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Bob Frady. Got a PhD in psychology from University of Georgia, and I was doing research on hormones and behavior, and was encouraged to take some postdoctoral work in comparative psychology, where we looked at behavior across species, including, fish, birds, uh, mammals. And then we moved on up to the primates. And I wound up having some coordination with Yerkes Primate Center because they were doing similar research on the primates. And I was primarily looking at aggressiveness and dominance. And, I looked at violent prison inmates, violent female inmates. I looked at battered women and men who battered, and we developed a system to assay hormones from saliva. I worked with Baylor College of Medicine and Emory University. So they called me the spit doctor for a long time. I was collecting spit from everybody. And I was trained in a very rigid scientific program. So I had a brief encounter during my postdoctoral supervision. I was trout fishing with my son, who was about 5 or 6 years old. We were in a very remote wilderness area, trout fishing. And we were walking along the river, and I saw about 8.5 feet up on a limb a clump of hair. It was reddish brown, probably about 6 to 8 inches long. And I've been in the woods all of my life. I couldn't think of any species of animal that had hair that could leave it 8.5 feet up on a limb. And I asked my son, and we couldn't come up with it. The only thing that factored in was a Sasquatch. And other than that, I've had no other interest really, or it wasn't on my mind until a state trooper about 15 miles from my house caught a Sasquatch crossing the road on his dash cam. Now that piqued my interest there. Still, I'm seeing patients 3-4 days a week, and Sasquatch is just not in my schema. And my sister and I have been going down to Hunting Island State Park on the coast of Florida since we were kids. Rick used to go with us. We'd all go, family would go, and camp on the beach. Rick hadn't been since about 1965. My sister and I go every year and stay in a condo. Rick decided wanted to go with us, so we took him. And there's a lighthouse there that we would run up and down when we were kids. Rick wanted to see the lighthouse. So we went to the lighthouse, spent about an hour there, and left the lighthouse parking lot. And we were laughing and cutting up and recalling old memories and just having a good time when right in front of us, 15 feet away, was a Sasquatch standing on the side of the road right in front of the hood. And Rick, driving, slams on the brake, and he looks at me and he says, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Unfortunately, yeah, I saw it." And my sister raises up from the back seat. She says, "I saw it too." Now, I do a lot of forensic work, working on homicide trials, death penalty cases, and all this kind of stuff. And I know the importance of eyewitness testimony. And so I told the two of them, I said, we need to decide right now, clarify what we saw. So we sat right there, and I started asking a series of questions. Was it standing up? Was it walking 2 legs, 4 legs? How tall was it? What color was it? And so forth. The only thing, and we never mentioned Bigfoot or Sasquatch, did we? I don't think we ever mentioned it. But we all saw the same thing. So we reported it to the state park office and talked to the lady at the desk, and she said she was going to have the park superintendent call us. We dropped my sister off at the condo. Rick and I went back to the lagoon, which is right there where we saw it. And we sat in the parking lot, and we had gone fly fishing for redfish the day before, and we had a cooler full of Smirnoff ice in the back seat or trunk. And I asked Rick, I said, is the Smirnoff ice still back there? And he said, yeah. We sat in the front seat trying to process what we saw, and we drank Smirnoff ice. We were in a state of shock, could not believe what we saw. And about that time, the park superintendent called, and I talked with him probably 30 minutes. And he said he was going to document it as a credible sighting, and he was going to rope the area off, and they were going to see if they could find any evidence of it. I haven't heard anything back from him. So I got on the internet, and I thought, let me see what's out there. First thing that came up was some group, a research group, and their primary plan is to kill one. And they've got a sniper team out and all this stuff, and they were going to kill one and try to document it that way. And I thought, I don't know about that now. And then I found Bigfoot Research Organization. I thought, these, and I saw all the sightings where they've documented this, so I called Matt Moneymaker and talked with him and gave him the report. Now, as a scientist, that just put me back into high gear. Now, I haven't done any research or published any probably since early 2000s. At that time, I was into the research mode. I was in the academic mode and published articles in various professional journals on hormones and behavior, dominance and aggressiveness, and so forth. This has perked my interest, and I want to document it. So I'm interested in conducting sound scientific research to see if we can't document it.
Can you both, because you were there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe in detail what you saw?
Well, I was driving the vehicle, and what I saw was like from the hip up, the hip down, 2 legs, and they were dark. It was black with some red tint to it, reddish tint to it, sheen, I guess. And what I saw was the legs, and I guess about like this, and saw it take 2 steps into the forest. With the forest, it was the coastal fauna, and it was just as thick as could be. Just stepped in there and disappeared. I guess being in the car, wasn't scared. So I backed up to where we had seen him and just looked all around, and like I said, you just could not see anything. It was just a blanket. Now you were in the passenger seat.
Yeah, we had 3 different angles. I had my brother, he saw it straight on. My sister was in the back seat. All she saw was really the legs, but she saw the same type of leg, the same color of hair, and so forth. I was sitting in the passenger seat and had an angle at it. So I saw from like the shoulders down. Now, when we saw it, it was going behind a pine, a big pine tree, and a palmetto stump that was about 3 or 4 feet high and had a bunch of stuff growing out of it. It was going between that in front of the stump behind that pine tree. He was bent over and moving fast, but he was right in front of the car. I'd say 12, 15 feet. What I saw was hair probably 3.5 inches long. He says it's black with red tint. I said it was dark brown reddish with black splotches. It looked like maybe it was dark brown reddish with matted dark splotches on it, like the hair was modded. It was walking upright, had a jointed knee, bent forward, head behind that pine tree, so we didn't get to see the head. But he took 2 to 3 steps. Now, the place where we were, it's all cabbage palms, palmetto palms, pine trees, palmettos growing up, you know, real thick. And I mean, 5 feet into it, you can't see. I mean, it's that thick. And it's full of alligators and deer and water moccasins and rattlesnakes. It's a swamp. It's the same area where they filmed the Vietnam War scenes in, what's the box of chocolates movie?
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, Forrest Gump. It's where they filmed the jungle scenes there. So it's a very heavy, wooded, swampy area with lagoons and, you know. I'd never thought of a Sasquatch being there, but it looks like Jurassic Park. That's what the place looks like. So,
When you were driving, how fast were you going?
We were going slow. In fact, I think there was a speed limit sign just right down the road from where we saw him, like 10 miles an hour.
I mean, we were just.
Oh, you're going slow.
You were going slow.
Real slow.
And then when you saw him, you said you hit your brakes. Did the creature do anything when you hit your brakes?
Kept on moving.
No, did
They
it?
just exited from the scene.
All right. We have some people here that are dying to ask questions. Who has a question?
I do.
Okay.
Lou?
That area you're describing, I've heard reports, I think it's commonly referred to the Honey Island monster. Is
Right.
that correct?
Now, I see the park superintendent said that there'd never been any sightings.
Okay.
And I said, he says, as long as I've been here. Now, the guy was young. I said, well, how about earlier on? He said, not to my knowledge.
What year was this again?
What's that?
What year?
This was
This past
2 or 3 months
August,
ago,
yeah.
in August.
August 12th.
Stories about the Honey Island monster.
Now, I was watching, after I saw this, I get on the internet, I start doing research, and I'm watching some YouTube stuff or Tubo or whatever, and I'm watching a video on Sasquatch, and toward the end of it, they start talking about the swamp apes in Florida, and then there's some guy with a black suit talking, and they get into South Carolina, and then he says, of course, there's the Hunting Island monster. And I'm thinking,
Honey Island?
I'm thinking, whoa,
Is it
Whoa.
Hunting Island or Honey Island?
hunting.
Hunting.
This is Hunting Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I say,
Honey
whoa.
Island monster. Yeah, thank you.
And he was talking about South Carolina.
Right.
Now there's something else in Mississippi or Louisiana called Honey Island or
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
The guy
Hunting.
said Hunting Island,
All right.
and he was talking about South Carolina. So I'm thinking the Hunting Island monster. Huh?
Yeah. Who else has a question?
I do.
Yes.
and you may have said this, was it in daytime or evening or
About, what was it, 12:30 in that, I mean, bright sunny
right
day.
daylight?
Yeah, daylight, hot day.
Yeah, clear.
Another question. Anybody?
Do you think it was a Bigfoot now that you look back and analyze and think
I
about
knew what
you
it
did?
was the minute I saw it. There was no question in my mind. There's nothing else it could be. I mean, the second I saw it, this is Sasquatch.
What would you estimate the height?
I'd say 6.5 feet, but he's bent over and his head going behind that pine tree. I'd say 6.5 feet. I would think, and I told Matt I thought it's probably a juvenile.
So who had the shoulder view, the arm view? Who had that?
I had that angle there.
From the, could you see? You saw his shoulder. Could you see the hand at all?
He was going through. He was going through. No, I didn't see the hand. No.
You know, I'm trying to determine the length of the arm.
Yeah.
Compared to.
I couldn't.
You didn't have-
His legs were. I would say the legs were about 3.5 feet long from his hip down. So
3.5 feet from his hip to his foot.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is a smaller one then.
I
think?
told Matt it's probably a juvenile. I think the total height would be about 6.5 feet.
Yeah. What about the girth or the muscle structure? Was it thin, skinny, muscular? Could you tell?
Would you say he was skinny or medium, or how would
Yeah,
you?
I would say more on the lean side than
Legs.
than husky.
Legs
The
are probably. His legs were probably that big around.
Yeah.
So thinner, sounds like.
Yeah, down here was about
Oh,
that big around.
By his calves.
Yeah.
Sort of thinner.
Yeah. Which, after I started looking into it, the swamp apes down in Florida, the coastal regions, tend to be smaller. So,
When you reported this to the authorities,
right.
what was their initial reaction?
The lady at the desk, who was probably a park ranger, she was very nice. She took our brief statement down. She didn't challenge us at all. And I told her, I said, I'm sure that y'all get all kinds. I mean, you got hundreds of thousands of people go down there to the beach, and I'm sure they get all kinds of crank calls. You know, people smoking pot on the beach and seeing whatever, or drunk or whatever. But I told her, I said, I retired as a chief psychologist for the prison system in Georgia. My brother retired as a correctional counselor for the Department of Corrections. My sister was standing there. She just retired with 30 years as a public school teacher. I said, so we're reporting the incident and we're not inebriated. We saw what we saw. And she was very, she said, okay. She said, I'm going to have the park superintendent call you. And he did. And he was very nice, asked a lot of detailed questions, seemed to be interested in it, and he said, I'll rope the area off and we'll send some of the rangers out to see if we can find some evidence. And he said, I'll document it as a reliable, credible event.
Did he say he will contact you?
No.
Do you have his information? Can you contact him and see what they found?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I could, and I can.
Yeah.
So, I haven't, because Rick and I, we're still in a state of shock.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, at that time, I mean, just it just blew my mind. Just in, like you said, a state of shock and awe, and it took a little while to process it, and still feel very, very favored, I guess,
yeah,
to have seen
yeah.
one.
That's how we look at it. There's very few people actually have one right there. And my poor sister, on the other hand, now she's wired up a little bit different, but she has shut down. She will not talk about it. She don't want to talk about it. You know, if I bring it up, she'll get mad at me, you know. So that is not a conversation that I bring around my sister. I love her, but yeah, no. Rick and I, we go up to the Bigfoot Museum and meet David and spend all day with him and learn a lot from him. And then, of course, Matt put me in touch with Charlie, and I couldn't wait to get out here. I told Matt, I said, I want to see, just kind of get a feel for research type methods and this, that, and the other that we're using. And I bought a UTV. If anybody know what a Brad is? Nope. A Bigfoot research vehicle that they use in Florida.
Yeah.
It's a UTV, and it's got all the
Sound.
the imaging, thermal imaging. It's got all the sound and all this rigged up on this little vehicle. So I got a Mahindra UTV. I'm wanting to outfit it. I want to get with Mark and let Mark help me get this thing outfitted. And I want to drive it through those roads at night at Hunting Island State Park.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes. Not only did it, at the time and still, leave you in a state of awe, but it also has left you with, or left us, or me, with the feeling of, I want to know more, and I want to see him again.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, we have a question.
How did your family react to that? Were they supportive or just like?
Now my son that saw the hair when he was 5 or 6 years old